Yes.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Sanna.
Yeah.
It
All the way
sounds
from Sweden.
all the way from Sweden. Now, Sanna, tell me,
Mhm.
I guess I usually ask people, like, tell me a little bit about yourself, but what would define you? What would you say defines you?
I used to say chocolate. Now I probably have to say cacao and languages. Uh,
Okay,
so communication.
why specifically that? Why are we talking about why is it cacao that defines you?
Because it's been a part of my life, I think, forever, as something really, really important, even though as a kid you only know of it as candy, right? And then it's been with me while developing all the other things that I care about. And from my teenage years, chocolate has been really, really important. And at one point, I realized that I can actually decide what to dedicate my time with, and I can work with what I love to do. So it's both a passion, a hobby, and work. Uh,
So how does it work though? Like, what do you mean by work? Are you growing it or are you doing a different form?
I'm a chocolate educator. So I do everything from freelance writing to chocolate tastings. And I'm also a chocolatier. So I make bonbons and a hobby chocolate maker. So I actually make chocolate from bean to bar. Uh,
Which do you prefer, educating on it or making the chocolate? Because it seems like,
edu-
yeah, about to say, seems like making the chocolate's probably the most difficult when it comes down to the whole like the fun and nitty gritty stuff of things. I feel like educating is a little bit easier because it's not that hard to get people to like chocolate. But there's a lot
yeah.
about it that people don't really understand or know a lot about.
Exactly. And people always get curious. So that is definitely what I for me it's easy because I like to talk. I think a lot of people who don't like to be in front of other people, they like to stay in the background of a social group. They would rather be in the kitchen, work with chocolate and learn for themselves and educate through sharing a piece of chocolate. Whereas I want to be the communicator, and I am also a teacher. In my background is in teaching, so it comes very natural to me.
Well, it's kind of
And
important to create a source of information for people to know what's going on in like either the chocolate industry or the cacao industry. I mean, the fact is, a lot of Americans, especially I think in the past couple of years, have really taken the time to look at. I don't think it just stems from Americans either, just people in general looking at where their food comes from. I mean, there's this high peak of curiosity of like where exactly and how is my food being handled, where is it coming from, what's going on with that company. I mean, I fell out of love with chocolate. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. When I was a kid, you mentioned your teenage years. When I was a kid, I would eat a whole pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream like it was nothing. Like I have a specific flavor I love. I love everything about chocolate. It was always chocolate on chocolate on chocolate. Like, is that chocolate ice cream? Let me put chocolate syrup on it. But then I guess as I got older, I started like kind of like I would say heading more towards like what they would call old people food. And when I say old people food is more like bland, flavorless food, like Raisin Bran. I love it. I think it's amazing. And I'm not just eating it because it's healthy. I'm eating it because it's good. But then vanilla ice cream, there's not a whole lot going on. So I was like, it's more of me relying on my actual taste buds than drowning it in something that I know is decadent and I know is kind of like and then there it is again. There's that shift of is it actual chocolate or is it so factory and sugared up that you're really just tasting the sugars? And
yeah,
it's if you actually have Hershey's chocolate syrup and then actually have actual cacao, there's a big freaking difference. Like it's like 0 to 100. You're like, hold on a second. This is the same thing. No, it's not. This tastes not exactly. No, that's more refined.
exactly. And there's so many people, like you say, who have no clue. And when luckily today I feel that a lot of people are, like you're saying, are interested in knowing where does my food come from, how is it made, and then they realize that okay, these industrial products that I've been eating my whole life, there's no cacao in it. It's not really, it doesn't have anything to do with chocolate. Whereas a chocolate bar, the majority in a chocolate bar should be cacao. For me, I make a big difference between candy and chocolate. Candy is something that you eat because of the sugar, you want the sweet, and candy can be very natural and artisanal and good ingredients if it's handcrafted. But it's a majority, it's sugary, it's sweet, and we eat it for comfort or to it can be anything from watching a movie and you munch on a lot of candy, or that you make a thing out of it and you find a local candy maker. But chocolate, then at least half, majority should be cacao.
I think it's the way the word sounds too. Like if you say the word candy, the first image that pops into my mind is like one of those little mints that you get on like your pillow or you get during a test, like something wrapped up in a little colorful package. But then when you say the word chocolate, I immediately think like we're at like a five-star dinner and we're getting like truffles or something. And the
Mm,
next thing you know, someone comes over with like a layer of chocolate syrup drizzled on top. Like it's more exotic or more of like a higher standard than when you would consider the word candy.
yeah, I agree. I've had this discussion with so many people though, who was like, no, all chocolate is candy.
Now you said,
But
so when was your first kind of peek into it where you're like, I freaking love this and I want to write about it. I want to educate about it. I want to know more about where it comes from. Cause I mean, I could do the same thing with Skittles or like Nerds Rope. Like I had that as a kid, but I'm not writing I'm not educating people on it because I didn't get that connection. What was that connection for you?
I think it was when I was 15 and I was stressing out like crazy over school stuff. And one Christmas, I decided to make my own bonbons and truffles. And standing in the kitchen, melting chocolate, finding recipes, figuring out how to do things on my own, and realizing how big the world was when it comes to the ingredients, and finding that calm. So that was like I zoned out and I forgot about all the stuff that was stressing me out, and I was just enjoying the moment, letting the ingredients and the chocolate process take time. I had already then realized that, oh, wait, in the shop I can find chocolate that where it says that the cacao is from Madagascar or is from Ecuador, and I started to realize that there's a way to travel with chocolate, and that's another passion of mine, to travel and discover cultures even as a kid. So I was like, oh, I can eat chocolate and the cacao is grown in Madagascar, a place where I want to visit. And those two things happened kind of at the same time. Before that, you weren't able to find a lot of diversity when it came to chocolate in Sweden. The craft chocolate revolution in the US happened way before it happened here.
That's interesting that you say that because I've talked to some people who call themselves pizzaiolos, which are like pizza chefs, and they talk about how like one of my buddies, his name is the Ohioan Pizzaiolo, but he was from a whole nother country and he came over here. He tried pizza for the first time and he fell in love with it because he never had it. He got it at the age of 14. So now his whole life is just consumed with pizza because over where he's from, like either Puerto Rico or something like that, there it's not a giant delicacy over there. It's very actually hard to get. So when he came over here, he was like, "What have I been missing for so long?" It's like that makes sense why you would end up having a passion for it. It's like if you don't have pie until you're in your 20s. Once I found out what pie is, I'm like, "Holy shit, I've lived 20 years and never had a slice of pie. Where have I been my whole entire life?"
And I love that with food and gastronomy in general, when you get those wow moments. And yeah, because all the chocolate that I had until my teens was candy chocolate. That is just sweet and it tastes, like you said, like sugar. And then like, wow, this dark chocolate, it tastes fruity. It has a flavor. It's a unique flavor that is different from all the other chocolates I've ever had.
Can you distinctively tell like where a chocolate's from based on where it's made of? Like if you like gonna eat this, you're like, this is obviously from Madagascar, or this is obviously from Berlin. Because when I eat it, I'm just like, because like just like every other probably kid out there or American out there probably would say if you said the word chocolate, first thing we're thinking of is Hershey's. You know,
Yeah.
like I went to Hershey's, whatever amusement park when I was a kid. I didn't really have a great time. But at the same time, they're the main distributors when it comes to candy. That's all you're seeing. And back in the day, there was what? Just regular chocolate. And then now they got like cookies and cream. Now they got like, and a lot of that seems like really a disservice to the chocolate industry, because it's all like just added flavors and stuff that's changing the whole flavor profile. If it's chocolate, it should be good raw. It should be good by itself without needing anything added onto it, extra sugar or anything. It's going to taste a little bit weird. It's like having non-pasteurized milk, but it's pure and it's a lot better for you. Like the big diet trend, for instance, is dark chocolate. If you eat dark chocolate, it can help with weight loss. Yeah, but all the dark chocolate we have here in the States is not exactly the best because it has like 50 grams of sugar in that thing. I mean, it's not like you can eat a bucket of Halloween candy and lose 5 pounds.
No, it has to be high quality. And the cocoa beans, I like the way you say that, that you have to like, or that the raw product has to taste good. Not everyone will enjoy the flavor of the cacao bean pure, or 100% chocolate bar that is just the cacao bean grounded up in and turned into a bar. But if you're a professional and a chocolate taster, or I really enjoy 100% cacao. Not everyone in the industry or chocolate enthusiasts do like that, but it has to be a nice flavor, because if the cacao doesn't have a nice flavor, you can't make a good chocolate out of it. And a lot of the industrial chocolate, the majority of what we found on our shelves, they don't have great tasting cacao to begin with, because they speed up the process, it's cheap labor. All of these problems that you talk about in the cocoa industry is also connected with cacao that doesn't really taste good. So if everyone would just demand good flavor cacao, we would have to educate more people. And I think in the long run, that would also result in fairer labor and more organic and biodiversity, because it's all connected with having great cacao. And
I don't
even
know.
if everyone don't like it as
I
it
don't
is.
I don't know how much you know about like the UK and everything that's going on with the Brexit deal. But I was researching into that, and the one of the main things that said that was going to be highly affected was cacao, was chocolate. And I was like, why is chocolate being this thing that's affecting with Brexit? And apparently, since they're cutting off ties with the Europeans, that means they're going to have to start doing that. You're going to see a giant increase in UK owned chocolate companies getting more products and more sales because people want to buy UK that live there since they're getting a cutoff from Europe. I'm like, how deep does the chocolate industry go? And you realize it goes really freaking far. Like
Yeah.
their number, I think sales increased by 32.6% during the whole pandemic because people are sitting at home just ordering sweets and chocolates. And they think that in the future of 2021, they think that their sales are going to go even higher with the fact of how much miscommunication or depersonalization because of the masks. They think because all this social distancing and stuff, they think more chocolate sales are going to go up because the chocolate is somehow in our history, from everywhere it's gone from in the past to where it is today, is seen as some type of intimate thing. It's always what you give a date when you go on a date. It's always like when you see a friend or it's the holidays, you give them that as a gift. And it's like they think that it's going to increase in sales because people want to still get that personal thing. They want to get that connection again. And they think more chocolate sales.
I would not be surprised. I mean, it is, you you usually feel special if someone gives you a treat, right?
Yeah.
And everyone loves chocolate. I just want people to love chocolate that is really good in every sense, from the tree to the chocolate bar. I want quality and I want fairness. So that's just that, and that's why I'm so passionate about it, and I stay passionate because there's so much to learn and there's so much to help people to understand.
Well, even though we talk about how much people want to know where their food's coming from, they don't actually take the time to really understand the sense of what the food is. And when I mean that, I mean like when they eat something, they don't sit there and like, hmm, I could taste the subtle notes of this and that. Nobody does that. They just swallow the thing and then you're like, Where's that Snickers you had? I ate it already." It's like, "Dude, I just gave it to you." You're like, "Yeah, you didn't tell me that I had to wait or anything. I just ate it." It's like nobody's really analyzing it. And I didn't understand that until like, because I would always get these chocolates from my grandma. Her favorite chocolate is the Ferrero Rochers, those giant, like the ones that look like they have that. To me, I look at that and I'm like, I think of the Monopoly Man. I think you have to be a high class person to eat that type of chocolate. And then I see like
Ah.
the custom Hershey bars, Snickers or something, if you eat those, there are subtle differences in them. There is a much purer form of it. It's a lot sometimes richer, but sometimes the richness of it is due to the sugar. It is due to the fact of it might be cheaper and it might taste better, but it's not exactly healthier for you. It's actually pretty bad.
Yeah. Usually on basically every chocolate bar will have the number of the percentage, and it will say 50, 70 if it's considered a darker chocolate. And what I always tell people, because in Sweden, people are very much health oriented, even though people eat a lot of sweets. So people want to buy the 70% because they've heard it's healthy. And a lot of people say, but I don't go any higher than 70% because then I'm not going to like it. But the richness, like you're saying, it doesn't come from the percentage of sugar. It comes from the ingredients itself. So, and also what do we perceive as being rich? But if we want a lot of intensity and a lot of flavor, it depends on the cacao bean and how you process the chocolate as it is. It's not about how much sugar it is. You can find a 90% that is kind of sweet and it's delicate because of the cocoa beans. And then you can have 70% that are really bitter and not at all pleasant because they use not so nice cacao to begin with. And a lot of times you want to hide off flavors with sweet. You add sugar, you add vanilla, you add other things to hide off flavors. Unless, like you were saying before, that now there's a lot like cookies and cream and all these flavor in chocolate bars. And sometimes that's just to please people's sugar needs. But when you have the craft chocolate makers that use great cacao to create amazing flavors, and I love when they play with like childhood flavors or memories, and they create something that can look like or sound like a candy bar, but every ingredient is accounted for. And you can, okay, where does the vanilla come from? Where does the cacao come from? So they are honest in their creative, like flavorful fun making. I really like that.
How do they get white chocolate then? Is there something with like the refining process, or is that a different type of cocoa bean or a cacao bean?
No, the white chocolate is the fat from the cocoa bean. So a cocoa bean is the seed of the fruit. And every seed, every like almonds and pumpkin seeds, everything contains fat. And the fat of the cocoa bean is called cocoa butter. And that's what you use to make white chocolate. So standard white chocolate is it should only be cocoa butter, sugar, and some kind of milk powder. It can be dairy or it can be coconut. And that's all you need to make white chocolate. So a white chocolate can be healthy because cacao butter is a good kind of fat. That's why they sell it to the cosmetic industry, because it's nice for the skin and such as well.
So you could just melt a white chocolate bar and start rubbing it on your skin?
Well, yeah. Dark chocolate too. It makes for a really nice like hand scrub with some chocolate, and you add some sugar and crystals and such. Because the fat is really nice for the skin for sure.
What would you consider a crime against the cacao industry? Like, for instance, like if you were going to look at a product that's being sold now that is what they call chocolate, we're going to put air quotes on chocolate. I look at Nutella. I see Nutella and I'm like, what is this? This isn't anything. This is a crime. Nutella to me is just a crime. I understand people love it, but it's like you tried to mix peanut butter with chocolate syrup. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I love a good gianduja, which is hazelnuts and chocolate. And I love hazelnut flavor with cacao, but I want those to be the ingredients: cacao, hazelnuts, and maybe some sugar. Then I find it absolutely amazing. But with these industrial cheap products, you have all these other ingredients. And for me, a crime against, if we talk about products and ingredients, to add products that are harmful for either for us as humans or for the planet. So there's a big problem with palm oil, right? And a lot of cheap chocolate contains palm oil. And that is, for me, that is horrible, because cacao I mean, historically, it's sacred. And you were saying as well that we like it because we gift something that people enjoy. And then when it contains horrible ingredients that make harm for the planet or for ourselves, that's really bad. And not to mention like problems with child labor or like really poor conditions for worker and people not getting paid and poverty. I mean, those if we get started on those topics, we can talk about
Well,
that for a really long time. So
that's a I mean, that's a good thing to bring up. A lot of people don't talk about is the fact that a lot of people don't understand how bad the child labor laws are down there. Like I lost probably I wouldn't say I lost my faith in chocolate, but I stopped eating it for a while after I had been doing some digging of like government projects and stuff. And then I saw something that said related to, and it said Nestle. I was like, Nestle, I know that's the one that makes my chocolate milk, the syrup I put in my chocolate milk. And I was smiling, and everything. And then I clicked on it and you start seeing all the horrible stuff they do with like child labor laws, everything that they're literally breaking as much as like they possibly can on the rules just to make a quick buck. And you start looking at that company like, wow, like they're one of our main produce. They make a lot of our chocolate down here. And I'm like, that makes you not want to fund their projects anymore. It's like why the main thing I started researching into more of like cacao farmers and trying to get to understand the process of that and getting to know actual people that go and farm it because you want to know where it's coming from. I don't want to support somebody that's doing heinous acts like that. So I want to look and see what the real process is. You start finding out that it's actually better to get to know people like that. The cacao farmers, all these types of people that are growing it themselves, because they're people that have a dream. They're just small business owners. And then you start looking
yeah,
at, I need to start buying locally, start needing to help out locally instead of buying corporations all the time.
exactly. And you have access to so many amazing chocolates since you're in the States that I can't. Well, it's hard for me to get them here in Europe. And there's so many makers of chocolate and cacao growers who care and want to make a difference. So instead of, I usually don't talk down on people who don't do the right thing. I try to talk up all the people who do the great things and want to change these things. And a lot of those people are small craft chocolate makers, bean to bar makers who care about where the cacao comes from. They might even buy it directly or very close to directly. They might have visited the farm, so at least they know, and they publish reports that are transparent and you can see how much did they actually pay for the cacao, so that okay, that they pay more than the fair trade price. These people can actually live off of their sales from cacao, and a lot of people do in all of the world. Even if they live in poverty, the income from their cacao is so important. And then we have people who are learning more, and there's great collaborations between makers and plantations and farmers, and everyone benefits. And I think that's so beautiful. So when you do research these things, you can find so many heartful stories that just make you smile because they are lovely. And then you get curious to actually try the chocolate that come
I-
from those farmers.
I'm guessing a lot of those farmers you said they had a good income, probably because cacao is only like grown in certain regions based on the climate there. It takes kind of a difficult climate to grow things. It's not like growing a tomato plant. You can't just plant it in the ground and then remember to water it. You need certain conditions, like special type of soil. At the same time, you need a special type of climate that stays kind of warm, kind of all year round.
Yeah, cacao grows basically 20 degrees north and south of the equator, and only in specific regions. It's quite amazing. It originates from Latin America, but now you find it all over the world because we have moved it around in order to be able to grow it in more places. But it is definitely a commitment to be a cacao farmer.
That is
Uh,
one food that where it's like, I don't know how, I don't know when, but at some point in our history, it just became this thing that became a comfort food, became what we use when we specifically love somebody or we have a very strong bond with someone to give them to make them happy. There's a difference between drowning your food in chocolate syrup and then just when you're upset and doing it that way. But that's the one food everyone turns to whenever someone's upset, whenever someone's going through something. You're like, get them chocolate, get them chocolate, get them chocolate. And it's it brings a sense of comfort. I guess it's like the sweet and rich factor. And the amazing thing is, once you figure out if you freeze a candy bar and then you eat it when it's frozen, oh, it changes the game. It's like the taste comes out even more in exuberant flavors, I would say.
Really? I don't, but if you freeze chocolate, or even if you like don't have chocolate in the fridge, at least not good quality chocolate, because when it's cold, you don't when the cacao melts, when the cacao butter melts, that's when we can really appreciate all of the subtle flavor notes. So like on a chemical way, it should be like room tempered is when we can fully appreciate flavors. And with cacao, when it melts, when we eat it slowly, if we want to be nerdy about it and talk about all of the delicate flavors that there is, and to be able to fully enjoy it, it should be melting in our mouth.
Well, don't listen to me then, because I do like frozen animal crackers, so I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty
But
simple when it comes to taste.
with there, I mean, different things for we like ice cream, right? But if we want to enjoy like the chocolate bar for what it is, then it shouldn't be cold. It should be, you should keep a chocolate bar in like cool room temperature, like 18 degrees Celsius
It
is
also shouldn't be
ideal.
harder for like or people that are producing it locally to maybe their country or something that are shipping it over here to America. It's the pricing factor. That is the biggest crime against humanity, is the pricing factor of anything that's sold overseas or made by a locally produced person. Because the whole fact of corporations can sell it for dirt cheap. A Hershey's chocolate bar is what, like $1.25 for a large bar? But if you want a bar that's made in Madagascar or something from like a small group company, it's like $7. And sadly, a lot of people, the way the world works, I mean, we're all kind of struggling. So it's like the cheapest bet if it gets you the same thing, but it's not always the same thing.
No, well, I think sometimes we do need comfort, and when we want to munch and when we want comfort, then not a lot of people have the luxury to actually just munch on something that they find expensive. But I'd rather eat a small amount of something that I really like instead of eating a lot of something just because it's cheap. Uh, so when you find that mindset, but I'm also the kind of person, you said before that there's not a lot of people who sit and think about what things taste like. I did it as a kid. I I I tell you that you should let the chocolate melt in your mouth. I did that as a kid. I never chewed my candy. I always ate everything super slowly because I wanted to enjoy it for a long time. So
That is
I'm one of
against
those
the, I will
people.
say that's against the norm of most people. And most
Yeah.
people are sticking like a handful of McDonald's French fries in their mouth, like 50 at a time. You're like, hang on, one at a time is supposed to be the name of the game here.
Yeah. I mean, when we were having candy in like family, friends, or whatever, like movie night, if there was a bowl of candy, I usually ended up having like 3 pieces of candy before the bowl was empty because I ate so slow.
Do you think it's weird that we have specific holidays that kind of like, as soon as you think chocolate, you're thinking the holidays? Like you think either Halloween, particularly, that's like the main one. Christmas time, a little bit, you do get, mostly it's baked into things. Like it's not like the typical candy you would see like in packaged wrappers. It's mostly baked goods. And then you think Easter, the little chocolate eggs and everything. It all hits this scenario. I'm like, when did that start? When did the holidays start picking up these things and now we associate that type of candy or that candy with that?
Yeah. I think that's has a lot to do with commercial and advertisement and the big companies. But when it comes to like the fact that we eat more chocolate when fall comes and winter comes, I mean, when it is in Sweden, it's incredibly dark for a really long time and it's cold and it's either rainy or gray and snowy. Like we need things that make us happy and comfortable. So I think that's why we eat more of it in general over the winter and cold season. And for in Sweden, that stretches from Halloween to Valentine's Day and further.
Yeah, because it's not really easy to eat like hot chocolate on like a 90-degree day or something like in the middle of the sun. Like it's really hard to be like, I'm gonna eat this wonderful Hershey's bar. Usually it melts, and half the time you're like, I don't want to deal with all this. But like, it makes sense that the sales would increase during the winter time because it's kind of when it's a little bit gloomy. Like they always say, like people die more around the holidays. It's not because the merriment and all that stuff. It's because it's like it's very hard. Some holidays are very difficult for people to get through and stuff. And that's when you turn to a comfort food. It's just boggles my mind how we chose chocolate to be a comfort food. And then what do you think about Reese's peanut butter cups? Like that's chocolate and peanut butter. I see that as like that's like mixing two different oceans together.
I haven't had them since I lived in the States. So my memory is fooling me, because then it was something unique. I never used to like peanut butter at all. And I was like, this is kind of cool combination with peanut butter and chocolate. But I mean, I can't stand them though, because like, obviously for me, I have different candy references. Even though I understand, I know all of the ones that you refer to because I've lived in the States, but I don't like any candy at all now, and I barely did then because I early discovered what chocolate can taste like. So, and now the
You
candies
ruined
that we
yourself.
have here, well, I think I improved myself.
Well, if you can't find enjoyment in the simple stuff, that's like now you've tried like the best pizza in the world, and now every other pizza just pales in comparison.
But I wouldn't think of it like that though, because I care about the ingredients, and I don't want to eat things that is not good for me or good for the people who made it. So if there's been or suffering anywhere in the product line, I don't want it. So it's like, even if I would like some of the cheap industrial things, I wouldn't want to eat them for an ethical reason. So it's, but I have friends and family who sometimes tell me like, Sanna, I can't enjoy the candy I used to anymore because you always give me chocolate from all of these amazing makers around the world. And that makes me really happy because I want to, like I said, I want people to find quality.
What are the
From pizza to chocolate.
what are the exact places you've been to and tried the chocolate there, and where are you looking to go?
Oh, I've traveled quite a lot, and I definitely have a lot of travel plans ahead now since, well, I haven't been able to travel for about a year. My next destination, it will be Peru, because I haven't been there, and their gastronomy in general, culture, but also for the cacao. I know of a lot of amazing cacao farmers and regions with amazing cacao, and also chocolate makers local. And I have a lot of people to visit and that have spoken about places that I should go to.
Why do I
So
think
that's
Belgium when I think of chocolate? I always think Belgium. I think that is that like a place that's high regarded for their chocolates or something?
And Belgium and Switzerland have been really famous for their chocolate, like during the past, what is it, like 100 years ish, because they were big in Europe and started to make a lot of chocolate. But they're big on industrial chocolate. There are craft chocolate makers and small makers in both of those countries, but not too many.
We're just
So
watching the videos of somebody like a chocolatier or something make one, but they engrave the bar to where it looks like a painting where you don't even want to eat it. You just want to mount it on your wall. And then like they make a lot of those and then they give them to people and people just eat it. And I'm like, what are you doing? Did you take a picture and put it on Instagram first?
yes. But isn't that with everything though? We really like to savor everything. And I think no matter what you're gonna eat, I mean, if it's something that you really want to eat, look at it first. So to give it time, take it in. Like chocolate bars, pizza, food, it should look appetizing. And a lot of times people eat without thinking. And all of a sudden they have finished the whole bar or the pizza and whatever it is without being aware of what they just ate, and then they're not going to enjoy it fully. So if it may be that people take a picture to post it on Instagram, but I'd rather have like talking to the person next to you. Wow, look at this, isn't this amazing? Do we really want to eat it? I do chocolate tastings together with a chocolatier here in Sweden. So he makes insanely beautiful bonbons, and I share craft chocolate from all over the world. And when people see his bonbons, they are amazed, and everyone take out their phone to take a picture because they are colorful, they are shiny. They're like, oh, it's like a diamond. And should I really eat it? He's like, yes, that's why I made it.
I
But
have no idea
enjoy
what a
it first.
bonbon is. I have no clue what a bonbon is. I don't think I've ever had an
um,
eclair. I barely like donuts.
what? I do. I wouldn't say I have a sweet tooth, because I don't like when things are too sweet. But I love pastry. I love sharing good sweet stuff. But I want if it's a raspberry, I want like a raspberry dessert. I want it to taste more raspberry than sugar. So that's like my key. But we have a word in Swedish called fika, and it's when you sit down and you share a moment of a coffee and something sweet, or sometimes a sandwich. But it's not only about eating, and it's not only about the social. It's a noun, it's a verb, it's a time to enjoy, and
Be connected.
it's usually sweet. Yeah, and usually with something sweet and a coffee and a tea. And it's like, it's in the culture. In a lot of office spaces, you have like the 9 o'clock fika, and you have the afternoon fika. And when you growing up, it's like, oh, can I come over for a fika? Or my grandparents, it's like, oh, Sanna, you want to come for a fika? So it's like, it's more than just you want to have a cup of coffee. Um, so for me, it's really important. So I do like, I like fika, I like pastry, I
I
like
mean, that's a
eclairs and
beautiful
everything.
thing. Imagine being able to incorporate that like in today's time, especially if you're here. Like, imagine if people had to actually sit down, no matter your differences, no matter if you've ever even met the person before, and have a coffee or have something and be able to have that communication where like, it's like, why I think people smoke cigars all the time, because a cigar is a craft you have to actually make time for. You know, when I hear people talk about smoking a cigar, it's a process where they're like, I turn on some music, I make sure I got a playlist, and I sit here and I enjoy this thing for about 45 minutes to an hour smoking a cigar. And you can't leave, because if you try walking and smoking a cigar, it's not easy. So I'm like, that makes sense why there's lounges for it where people will go there, because it's like going to a bar or something. You're sitting down and you're interacting, and this is the event that's going on, and you're not trying to move. I feel like the world is way too fast paced. And that's when you lose a lot of essential things, when you start losing where your stuff comes from. I mean, I've never been to a cacao farm. I've never been to a cocoa plant. I've never been to any of those things. But what I have been to that kind of is similar would have to be a pineapple plantation. Going there, the only really main producer of pineapple in the States is Hawaii. And there's a thing
Yeah.
called the Dole Plantation. It has one of the largest pineapple mazes ever. But it's a sense of connection when you go there and you start looking off into the fields. And this fruit or vegetable, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. When you see it and you're like, I eat like what, 3 pineapple a week or something? That's my own diet. And then I go to the farm and they're like, it takes 48 months to grow a pineapple. I'm like, dude, what? Like, I kill those things in a week, like 3 of them. And he goes, yeah, well, we grow a lot here. We grow probably thousands upon thousands just to be able to, at certain times we have different farms going all at once. Our whole island is basically the whole part of it's just pineapples. I'm like, 48 months. It takes 2 years to have just a small little pineapple. He's like, yeah. I'm like, it really puts in perspective the craft of it all, where you're like, that must be what your experience was like, going to a cacao farm for the first time and being like, wait, the process is what?
Exactly. And I think it's so important to appreciate that process. But until someone tells us, or until we visit, we have no idea. And we need to appreciate that. Maybe like our pineapple or our chocolate bar, whatever it is, like there's people who have worked hard in order for me to sit here and eat this. And we go on with our lives not thinking. So I think I like your reference to, even though I don't smoke, but when you find people who, in whatever context, where they find, okay, my moment of peace and my moment of awareness and enjoyment, where I can combine eating something and connecting with other people. And we need to be more connected. it's like you say, the world is so fast paced, and if we don't sit back and enjoy company and quality of taste, it's sad. We need more of that for
Well,
sure.
I think that's what the whole point of if you went to like a work meeting or you had a work breakfast or something, somebody brought in donuts or somebody brought in like some type of sweet treat for you to have in the morning to boost up your mood throughout the whole entire day. I mean, I used to work at a hotel and on Sundays is our busiest days because those are checkout days. So that means you're having 360 something rooms checkout that you have to clean all before you leave. So it's like you're just exhausted at the end of it. But that mood booster that you would get on those heavy days were like donuts and stuff. And even though it was something small and kind of like, it's not, doesn't really help, but it's a mood booster to know, like, hey, let's make this a good day, that type of thing. But it's been from what you said, your form of doing it, like where you can sit down and have a scone with somebody or have a bonbon with somebody, we've kind of dumbed it down and then really lost the whole meaning of the connectivity behind it because we just throw donuts in a break room and then expect people to go in there knowing there's donuts and grab one and then get to work. That's not sitting down.
Mm,
That's not enjoying. That's not having a coffee with someone. That's not getting that intimate relationship built. And then you're never going to have a strong foundation where you can connect with other people.
yeah, and then people might just eat that donut while they work, and then they're not going to enjoy the donut. They're going to get lots of sugar, and then they're going to feel guilty for eating it. Instead of, I'm going to sit down with you and eat this donut and have a good time, and then I'm going to start working, and then I feel good about what just happened. Instead of people guilt trip themselves so much for eating something that they enjoy, and I either don't eat it or eat it and don't feel guilty. It's a choice, I think.
It's just hard because sometimes you think like I'm just gonna have a bit of this candy bar, then you eat like 4 candy bars and you're half a Halloween candy bag in. You're like, I messed up. I messed up. It's like, well,
I
maybe your
mean, we
body
have to
needed
do
it.
that sometimes. And instead of being like feeling too guilty about it, okay, what can I do about it? Maybe I'm not going to eat any candy tomorrow, or I'll just go for a walk. I mean, instead of, I think we will feel way worse when we feel guilty about something that we have eaten, instead of, I really enjoyed eating those. And yeah, maybe it wasn't the best thing to do. Maybe next time I'll eat something better or less. But now this is what happened.
Yeah,
Uh,
see because I'm a big fitness guy. So for probably like just working out every single day. And for years and years, I restricted myself so much to it, just a can of tuna, and that was it. No enjoyment of candy or anything.
really?
I just recently, out of like 8 years of working out every day, just recently decided to start having maybe a little bit of sweets. And that's because it gets around the holidays, and my grandma makes these pretzel rods that are rolled in caramel, drizzled with pecans, chocolate chips, white chocolate chips, dark chocolate chips. And then like a bunch of other like nuts on top of it. And then you freeze those things. Oh my God. It's like a whole nother world where like I start just taking a little bit of nibble of it. But you realize, oh my God, like my body has really been missing this. Like it is, I'm not saying go eat a chocolate cake, but don't limit yourself so much. And I never truly understood it until this year alone, but don't limit yourself so much to something where you're taking out the basic enjoyments of life, where it's like, yeah, you can go out and have that dinner with friends. You can go out and have that little slice of cake. You just don't overdo it, but you can have a bit of it and you can enjoy life. You don't have to be so restrictive because what's that going to get you in the end?
Yeah, for sure. I've been talking, like today, I talked about it, and I'm reading a book about like feeling great in general. Like how do we want to live our lives? That's been like a bit of the conversation around my friends and such for the past days. Because if we make restrictions, like you're saying, that make us feel bad, either because when we don't follow through and we do other ways, or when we limit ourselves and we don't do something that we really want to do. And it doesn't make any sense. We have one life. Let's do good for ourselves and others, but let's not make it so hard for ourselves.
I think it's the ideology of where we choose to, I guess, put our love. And what I mean by where we put our love is we look at how society has built up these ideas of you need to be a six pack, you need to be these types of things that get into your head where everything you see that represents beautiful is like bodybuilders or people that are actors or famous or extremely good looking people. And then you think, well, if I eat chocolate, I'll never be like that. So then you confine yourself so much and you don't realize that, like, this is all just a ploy to get even more money for corporations. They're selling you this image thinking, and then somehow it's perceived everyone or got everybody brainwashed into thinking that's what beautiful is. Wouldn't you rather go on a date and have way more fun with someone that is eating and actually enjoying it? Like, let's order a sundae. Let's split a sundae together rather than someone that's like, I'm going to have to eat this side of asparagus and this little bit of chicken and that's it. That was me.
No.
I was bland as
Really?
shit. So I understand where that's coming from. And it's a big step for me to say this stuff because the fact of how long I thought that's what it was. I was totally
Yeah.
manipulated. But I remember my one of my friends, his older brother had said to me, because he was a giant weightlifter, bodybuilder guy. He goes, okay, you can do that for how long? Okay. You know how long you just did that for 8 years? That's 8 years of your life you missed out on because you never took a shot just to enjoy life a little bit by having a little bit of a Sunday. And it's like, man, I look back on it now, I'm like, shit, he was so right when I was so freaked out about calories. I'd eat a French fry and I'd get on the treadmill and burn 1,600 calories or something, all because my mind was telling me it's bad, bad, bad. And I'm like, I'm glad that the world is turning this whole other leaf now where people are starting to look at the things that get played on television, that get played on as bad, because it's going to affect the children. And that's the worst thing. I don't want a kid growing up watching what they eat when they're checking calories on a thing. I did that once in my life. When I first started working out, I checked calories. Now, every time I grab something, I check the calorie content and I can never undo it. It's like
Yeah.
once you see behind the curtain, you already know what's behind the curtain.
Ah, well, I'm happy to hear that you are like letting go of this a little bit so you can enjoy food that is put in front of you. I can't imagine living like that because food and eating is it's so important for me. And like I said before, I'd rather have a little than a lot because I really want to enjoy. But when I travel, when I meet friends, it's about flavors. It's such a big part of my experience, and I don't like to limit myself. I just have to say, I mean, not to go crazy. We have to find a balance. Nothing is healthy in like when it's in excess, but at the same time it's not bad for me. I honestly, I eat chocolate every day. I mean, it happens sometimes I forget, but I usually have a piece of chocolate in the morning to start my day, and I think about how it tastes and what it is. And a lot of times I do have a sweet treat of like we have amazing cinnamon buns, for example, and a friend of mine is a baker, and he uses heirloom grains, and it's really amazing ingredients and everything. And I could easily have one of his cinnamon buns every day and out without feeling guilty. But it's one, it's not 15. So if I enjoy it, then I eat it. And then I do work out. I find that both fun and important. We need both, but I don't want to limit myself. I
Decadent
need to have enjoyment.
chocolate can be decadent and it can also be destruction depending on how much you consume of it. Like, I mean, it's like that with anything. Sweets, they're good parts when someone has like, I'm gonna have a little bit of ice cream before bed. That's okay to do every once in a while. You can do that every day if you want, depending on what you're doing during the day. If you're active, sure. But if you're just sitting at home and you're eating nothing but gallons and gallons upon ice cream, you're not going to get the same effect by it. It might taste good, but you're not getting that overall stimulant thing. I think there was a theory a long time ago, like chocolate theory or something, where someone would eat a piece of chocolate first thing in the morning, and that would set them for positivity throughout the rest of the day because the types of hormones it released are things that can keep your day just I guess at a level that's not below what you should be, which is where anger and all this resentment and stuff hangs in. When you can stimulate your brain first thing like that in the morning, like wow, and you get that smile on your face. That's why whenever you see a kid drinking chocolate milk, that kid has a great day. Like a lot of the time, it's not really that bad. Like first thing in the morning, that was like the best thing. And then like, nothing could really get to you. You kind of like already had your endorphins raised up a little bit. And I think that spike is important. I feel like a lot of people, they choose to have like, oh, especially nowadays with the diet trends, nobody's even really eating breakfast anymore. They just run right out into work. And it's like, you're fasting. What are you doing? You know how pissed off people get when they're fasting? Try not eating for 12 hours. You'll be angry when someone just says hi to you.
We have to find ways to, I mean, like you say, you want to enjoy for ourselves, but also be positive with other people. Definitely not to make other people feel uncomfortable when they walk up to you like, hi. It's like, no, don't talk to me. I haven't had breakfast yet. We don't want that. We want positivity. I haven't heard about that study, but for me, it makes sense that if you start your day, start your day doing something that you love, and then it's going to be good. I have a friend, and when she goes to bed at night, she's always, tomorrow morning, I'm going to have coffee. And then she's super happy because she's already going to bed dreaming about the first cup of coffee in the morning.
It's kind of like when hotels, whenever you stay at one, they put a chocolate on your pillow. That they want that to be either you can choose to be your sweet treat or it can be the first thing when you wake up. It's kind of that thing of trying to start or give your day a little bit of positivity or a little bit of stimulant. But like I don't want to say because that study's really good though. But I'm like, I wonder if I've read that somewhere or if that was a TV show episode. Because then I'm like, then I'm really discrediting that study. But it makes sense. Like you want to do something in your life that creates a little bit of a stimulant, so you're set kind of throughout the rest of the day. If it's right before you go to bed, then maybe you're going off those hormones and you're going into your sleep and you're just having that overall feeling where it might help you even dream better. I mean, the world is pretty kind of like fast paced. It's pretty mindset on specific things. And you really don't take time to enjoy anything. I've been trying my hardest and, even heading into the new year, it's kind of like this whole thing of what I want to start doing is I want to really start enjoying every single experience. And what I mean by that is I sat out 2 hours before work this morning and I just stared at the full moon. Like it was something where it overtakes you when you really let it. How many times is someone getting up 5 minutes before whatever work's about to start and they're rushing around, running down the house, going out to their car, starting up their car and then driving, and they're not even paying attention up into the sky and seeing the stars at night. There's so much about life that we're missing out on because we're not taking the time to enjoy those decadent things. And that's why the world looks cold a lot of time, because you're missing out on the essentials.
Yeah. And we're not present. If we're constantly rushing to the next thing, we're missing out. I mean, I love watching the moon as well. It's such it gives peacefulness, and it's so mind-blowing beautiful, especially at full moon. And when it rises just out of the horizon and it's big and almost reddish, it's amazing.
I just wish my iPhone could take a decent picture of it. Every time I try, it's all blurry. I'm like, damn it. Like, how am I going to remember this? I can blink a bunch of times. So I guess that's like photo shooting, I guess, with your eyes, but
memory photo.
Yeah.
Some people like say that we remember things better when we don't take pictures out of it. Or, I mean, when we take pictures of so many things, we will only remember the things we took pictures of and not the other things that happen. But I think that connects with, if we're present in what's happening, then it doesn't really matter if I took pictures or not, because I was in that moment. And then it's the moment that counts and not my memory after. I kind of like that.
It's like living in the moment, because if you've ever been to a concert, how many people are filming it on their phone and they're paying attention to seeing it through their phone? You're like, bro, it's right. Put the phone down a little bit and just see over your phone. Experience it with your actual eyes. It's going to be a different feeling. Like, how many times are you actually going to look back on that recording of some dude playing your favorite song? Probably not a lot. You're probably going to be like, I'm never going to look at that again. Or I might show one person at a party 5 years later.
I mean, and then take like a 30-second video of one song in the concert, I kind of don't like going to concerts anymore because I end up looking at other people's screens because they are all over the place.
Yeah.
And I can't even see the little guy like far in the front playing the guitar. It's like,
It's a world that's
hmm,
captured by social media where they feel like they need to post it so people know that they're there. I'm like,
yeah,
why don't you just know that you experienced it? You know, but like in the world today, it's all about you gotta have proof. You gotta have proof. I'm like, I can't tell you that I went to a Kid Rock concert when I was a kid. I can only tell you remember the memory, but if you don't believe me, that's your choice.
do you have a picture proof?
No,
I mean,
I don't think cameras were that big back then.
and isn't that nice? Like to be able to, I did that because then we do it for ourselves. When we start to take pictures to post, then we risk losing that and we do it for somebody else. Like you were saying with as well with working out too much or being too obsessed with what we look like because of the images that we see. Am I doing this for me or am I doing it for somebody else or for an ideal? Am I feeling good living my life this way, eating this way, or who am I doing this for?
It's kind of like when I mentioned how beautiful that painting is behind you. If you would have seen a picture of that exact thing and you would have been like, okay, so you want me to paint this? And then you would have painted it. I guarantee you that would look completely different. You know, like pulling it from memory or seeing something from yourself and then trying to draw a representation of what you remembered is going to have a different impact than you would if you were just looking at a piece of like a picture of something, be like, all right, so it's like that. There's just a different pull or push towards it.
Yeah, definitely. Connecting ourselves. Like when I paint these, when I paint cocoa trees, I don't look at photos. I paint a tree from my mind rather than trying to recreate what an actual tree looks like because they are still, every tree is different. Every cacao fruit is different, anyways.
When you go to one of these farms, do you really try and each time kind of examine the tree a little bit different than you did maybe the time before? Like look up maybe subtle key features so when you go to paint, then you can reflect on those things?
I actually haven't. I mean, really diving into painting cacao fruits has been this year a lot. I've painted more this year
Just can't
than
go
before.
anywhere.
Yeah, I've had more time to paint. And before that, I painted differently. So I'm actually never studied a cacao tree to paint it or to become a better artist. Uh, no, I need to do that next time. Next time I'm standing underneath a cacao tree in a tropical forest, I'm gonna think about that.
I think the best thing I've ever done in my life was probably take a art history class because when
Mm,
you start to actually examine paintings and what in your mind do you perceive that painting, like how was it painted, when was it painted, what was the temperature like outside? If you can look at a painting of like a cacao tree and you can picture like maybe the moist air of the climate and you can really envision yourself like inside of that painting. I know that sounds like very artisty or whatever, but no,
I like
seriously,
it.
like putting yourself in that position of understanding how that painting and what the artist is really trying to show you the experience of. It changes your mind on everything. I literally every time I look over to the side over here, I'm staring at a Vincent van Gogh Starry Night painting that I had
Uh,
not did not have enough space for on my wall, so it's just sideways by my door. And I always stare at it because the colors, you know, the brush strokes that curl and do like these swirls in the moon, how it's two different shades of yellow, a golden, and then it seems like a bright yellow. And then they start telling you that he painted that from his asylum window, and you're like, oh my God, like if you can't feel the vibrations off that, then you have no sense of touch. You know what I mean?
yeah, I know. Art is incredible, and it should awaken emotions and create things. And especially, I would like to take an art history class because and whenever I go to a museum, I always try to remember the name of a new artist that I didn't know before. If I go to like more not modern, well, I do on modern art galleries as well and museums because I want to expand my knowledge in everything, even though I'm a bit obsessed with cacao and languages. But I want to be able to remember the name of an artist that I like. But it would be nice to actually like dedicate proper time to that in like a student.
You should find a cacao farmer and find a woodsman or a woodcrafter, and you should make cacao based furniture items, like maybe a hollowed out cacao fruit, and then you put Skittles or popcorn in it, so it's like a centerpiece for a table.
I would put bonbons.
I gotta look up what a bonbon is.
Yeah, I just realized I didn't tell you. Like maybe you call bonbons truffles, but for me, a truffle is when you mix, for example, like a simple bonbon, cream and chocolate. You mix those two, and then it sets, and you have a truffle that will melt nicely in your tongue, on your tongue.
I don't think
Whereas
that's what
a bonbon
truffle is.
What's a truffle to you?
Something pigs find. I don't know.
No, that's also truffles. Those are truffles, like the mushroom truffles that are really fancy as well, like Italian food, grating it on top of
they smell horrible.
Pasta dish. No, it's a nice flavor, but it can be super, super intense.
Yeah.
So there's two kinds of truffles. The ones that you find in the woods, and then the ones a chocolatier makes. Okay. But a bonbon, then you have a hard chocolate shell, and then it's filled with a ganache, or it can be filled with marmalade, jam, and all kinds of different layers and crunchiness, depending on how complex it is. But a simple bonbon would be a chocolate shell filled with a ganache that is the same as a truffle, cream and chocolate, so that you bite through the hard shell that should be thin and easy to bite to, and then you come to the soft center. And in a bonbon, you want multiple textures. You want the crust on the outside, softness on the inside, and the best kind of bonbons, in my opinion, is when you have several textures within the soft center as well.
I'm not a fan of words meaning multiple things, if you know what I'm saying. You kept saying Ganesh, and I keep thinking of the Hindu god Ganesh with the 6 arms.
But that's Ganesh, and this is a ganache.
That's what I'm saying. You can't do that. You pick a different letter in the alphabet, find a different word. It's too similar.
I think it's French.
Oh man, look, Sanna, you've given me enough of your time today. I really appreciate you doing the podcast. Do you want to promote your Instagram where people can find you at, and even check out your chocolate blog to be able to see some of the education that you teach about cacao?
Yeah, that would be lovely. So anyone who wants to know more about chocolate or cacao can contact me through my Instagram. That's the easiest way to access me. And then it's Cacao Sanna. And that's my language nerd coming into place, because my name is Sanna, and cacao is in Spanish spelling, so CACAO. Cacao Sanna means cacao heals in Spanish, or if you don't look at grammar, healthy cacao.
And I make sure I link everything in the description. And thank you for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank Podcast.